Okay, we're going to continue on with Freemasonry. I know my husband was photobombing me in my last presentation. Anyway, I'm going to continue on. We were reading a long article out of bibliotycopolyades.net, and we were just reading about Freemasonry, and now we're going to continue on. So if you didn't see the other parts, I would go do them first because I'm going to be getting into some new things here. Okay, continuing on, it says, despite the efforts of multiple anti-Masonic movements throughout history, the organization still survives today and continues growing in its sphere of influence. Yeah, there's a lot of people even at the low levels that are still getting into Freemasonry. They talk about, oh, you know, their membership's down and this and that. Not really. Not really. Not from what I saw from the latest statistics. Okay, quote, allegations of Masonic plots, hard to find in mainstream publications and even harder to prove, are not restricted to dimly recalled history. One largely unreported story during the Ronald Reagan presidency clearly indicated that at least one Freemason lodge was conspiring to overthrow the government of Italy. This scandal also involved a little-known group connected to the Freemasons called the Knights of Malta, which inherited the military orders of the Knights Templar. These are your Knights Templar. John J. Raskob, one of the 13 founders of the American Order of the Knights of Malta, was involved in the abortive coup against President Roosevelt in the early 1930s. Foiled only after Marine Major General Smedley Butler blew the whistle on the scheme. Modern American Knights included CIA directors John McCone and William Casey. Casey, along with Reagan's first Secretary of State, Alexander Haig, had been connected to a fellow knight named Licio Gelli, who during the 1980s turned a little-used Italian Masonic lodge into what was termed a worldwide fascist conspiracy. With the help of the Mafia, the Vatican Bank, and the CIA. And that was written by Jim Marrs in his book, Rule by Secrecy. Like I said, this guy has got all kinds of information. Great research. Traditional history insists that the Revolutionary War was fought over British monarchy's unjust taxation of America. Here we go. While this is true on one level, it is also true that the leaders of the American Revolution, the signers of the Constitution and Declaration of Independence, were all descendants of British aristocratic bloodlines. There's that word again, bloodlines. And most of them Freemasons. Quote, not only were many of the founders of the United States government Masons, but they received aid from a secret and august body existing in Europe, which helped them to establish this country for a peculiar and particular purpose known only to the initiated few. That was by 33. That quote was from 33rd Degree Mason Manly P. Hall in the secret teachings of all ages. Okay. The very struggle for independence seems to have been directed by the Masonic Brotherhood, and some historians insist had even been started by them. This was a quote by David Oveson from The Secret Architecture of Our Nation's Capital. Boy, is that one to really get into. We won't get into any of that here, but my goodness, there's a lot. There's a lot that could be shown. I think in my slide video, I also put a picture of the phallic symbol. Here's a phallic symbol, by the way. Okay, did you notice in that picture, it's right in the center of a circle? And then look at this one. This is a phallic symbol right in the Vesica Pisces. Now that's something that Jonathan Kleck talks a lot about. We'll probably not get into that here, but that's another one of their symbols. But the Vesica Pisces is supposed to be the female anatomy, and that big tall spike that you see going up in the middle, that is the phallic symbol, the male genitalia. Get it? And this goes all the way back to the Garden of Eden. Okay? That's summarizing it up in as few sentences as I can. Also, here's a picture of the layout of our Capitol building there. That whole layout around it is laid out like an owl. Owl as in Bohemian Grove owl. Okay, here you go. Here's a picture. Okay, now, here's another quote. Freemasonry was the driving force behind the ideals and tenets of the American Revolution. What is less well known is the fact that there was a very close connection between the French and American Masonic lodges at that time. In those days, Freemasonry in America was regulated by the United Grand Lodge in England. No surprise there, which appointed provincial Grand Masters in various regions of the North American continent. That little piece of information came from Graham Hancock and Robert Bauval in Talisman. Before the Revolutionary War, the New World, the brave New World, the New World of the Americas lacked unity and autonomous identity. For almost 300 years, there was no military, constitution, or federal government. That's a little known fact, okay? And that's something that most people don't know, is how, we go all the way back to 1776 when we celebrate the 4th of July, when the Declaration of Independence was signed, and all this happened was 1776, July 4th, 1776. America had their own government and everything going on before that. That was not the beginning of America. But, in your history books in school, that's what they teach you. Well, I don't even know if they teach you that anymore. I mean, if you watch this guy like Mark Dice, you see clips of him all over YouTube. He will ask people questions, simple questions. Like he'll go around on 4th of July asking people what that holiday represents, what it means, where it comes from. He walks around the beach communities. These people haven't gotten a clue. Well, it's just a party day. They don't know, or he'll throw some crazy thing in there and they agree with it, okay? Like he'll say, that's when, how do you like celebrating this 4th of July? The day when we separated ourselves from Mexico, and people don't know the difference. They could care less, We have a very fluoridated society. If you wonder why people around you seem dumber and dumber and dumber, it's not your imagination, and it's not that you're getting smarter and smarter and smarter. So don't pat yourself on the back for that. It's that society is being dumbed down. They are being systematically dumbed down through their school system, through fluoridation in the water. I'll get into all that later. Okay. Here we go. I gotta finish. I interrupted myself. Then within 2 short years, the snap of a historical finger, America had Continental Marines, Continental Congress, and the Articles of the Confederation with the Declaration of Independence. The British colonists, or Americans, officially separated from the British nationalists. That's really all it was. That's why I said. When they wrote in their books and they put Esquire at the end of their name, they weren't completely leaving the British crown. I mean, everybody thinks, oh, no, we fought and we separated ourselves. Oh, no. Oh, no. No. That's like the mother country to this country. Nothing's changed. Okay, Freemason and bloodline, General George Washington became the first president of the now United States of America, and royal rule of America switched from overt to covert. Royal and secret society rule had not changed, only the perception of governments changed, while the same DNA stayed in office. DNA. If you wonder why 9/11 came down, that whole little thing with the two twin towers is about, they were supposed to be two strands of DNA. And they took them down, and now they built the one World Freedom Tower. That is the two. Remember, I go back in Genesis, you got an evil twin and a good twin, and now the two are becoming one. It's Jonathan Click. He could tell you all that. But, yeah, the same DNA stayed in office. They're all related to each other. All of them. All these presidents related to each other. Okay. But I did tell you one thing in a different video, but I'll repeat this for anyone that may not have seen that video. George Washington ended up being president not because he was like the big leader, okay, so they made him president. No, they needed a president. Basically, if you ever get that picture in mind of a bunch of people standing in a line and they ask for a volunteer, so everybody takes a step back and just the guy standing there gets it. Okay, that's kind of George Washington. It was just kind of a fluke. They needed somebody to fill a position. They stuck him in there. There was no big major thing behind it. And if you believe the cherry tree story, well, I feel bad for you. That never happened. This is the brainwash. They taught you that story in school. Just like they taught you about Honest Abe Lincoln. Well, they taught you about George Washington and the cherry tree. Never happened. Okay, so anyway, but it was kind of a fluke that he got in. Yes, he was a Mason, and it is believed that toward the very end of his life, as a result of doing this, he pulled out of Masonry. So apparently he must have had the same idea Quincy Adams did, that it was an evil. It was a very evil thing. This was not something good. This wasn't about people's freedom. This wasn't even about people. This was about the few ruling the many. And he did pull out of Freemasonry. And when he did, they murdered him through bloodletting. They won't let that little secret out. Oh, they had to treat him for an illness. No, they killed him. All right? Through bloodletting, they killed him. That's the truth. And when you go look at pictures of George Washington, he's always wearing that apron. They got him in that Freemason apron. Not only that, but they made a statue of him. This one right here. And he looks like Baphomet. They got him in the same position, just like this picture here. Yes, that's how wicked this is, okay? Baphomet is Satan, by the way. But anyway, or Molech, or whatever you want to call him. Baal. He's actually Baal. But, yeah, that's what they did. They won't tell you he left Freemasonry. They probably buried him in his apron. But anyway, that's as the story goes, is that he really did pull out. But you know what? They do oaths and different things that these things will happen to them if they do walk away, especially in the high degrees, the really high degrees. I mean, the first three lower level Masons, if you ever pull out of the first 3 degrees, there are certain prayers you probably should be saying and denouncing certain curses that come through Freemasonry upon you and upon your family. Okay? And if you're a generational person who may not have been a Freemason, but you had parents and going up your family tree ladder, you need to do deliverance. You need to break that curse off of you in Jesus' name. And there's websites that'll show you that. You can even go to Sala. Oh, what's his name? He has a deliverance ministry here on YouTube too. Chris Sala, I think his name is. Anyway, these guys, they can help lead you through prayer to break these curses off of your life, because Freemasonry carries with it a curse upon those that are in it and upon their families. Definitely curses, I should say. So, anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in there. Alright, I'm going to read on. I keep interrupting myself and forgetting where I left off. Instead of peasants, well aware of their plight, knowing the monarchs and emperors oppressing them, we became peasants who actually believed we were born into a free and open system. See, that's the lie that you have been taught. We're slaves here, okay? We are slaves, and we are slaves in this nation. How do you know that? Go homestead somewhere. Just go find yourself a piece of property that nobody really owns, and just go homestead there and tell me how long that lasts, okay? There were homesteaders from many years ago. The government's trying to take their land from them. Look at this thing that just went on a couple of years ago with, can't think of their names. It was a really big deal where the government wanted to take all their acreage that had been in their family over 100 years, okay? Because the government wanted that land. Oh, that's good land for us. Do you know the government is not supposed to be owning all this land? So how a loophole they get around it is they try to call it a national preserve. Oh, we're preserving this area because, you know, the desert turtle. Okay? Oh, it's becoming extinct, so we're going to take all these acres. And that's how they get around it. They are legally not supposed to be able to take over the amounts of land that they have. Truth be known, the Queen of England owns the most amount of land here in the United States. And you can research that out. I didn't even plan to tell you all that. But here in the U.S., Queen of England owns the most. She is the largest landholder. Okay? Just a little FYI. I'm not talking about Canada. I'm talking about here in the good old U.S. of A. How does that happen? Okay. And then it says, yeah, you're born into a slavery system. You really are, you know. You want to know why you have the educational and doctrinal system that you have? I'm talking about government education, kindergarten through graduation of high school, is because they're not teaching you anything. I mean, if you go back and look at these tests from people back in the 1800s, and how smart they were, like a fourth grader was smarter than a high school graduate today. That's not a joke. That is not a joke. These schools don't even want you critically thinking. You have to answer exactly the right answers on your tests. You have to do what they tell you is the right answer. You are not allowed to think outside the box, or you will fail. You have to give their answers. And if you are a good enough mini-me, and you are good enough yes, yes, yes to them, and you answer all your questions correctly, then we'll advance you to the next level, just like in Freemasonry, okay? It goes on even into college with the mortarboard hats, all that's Freemasonry, and the gowns, and the whole 9 yards. But anyway, in school, they teach you enough to get by. That's why they came out with this No Child Left Behind nonsense. See, the kids that are average intelligence are going to be held back by those that have no intelligence. Trust me, there are a lot of people on this planet that have no level of intelligence. I've met them. Okay? I don't know how they'd find their way out of a paper bag. And no, they're not even mentally disabled. I'm talking about people that they're not on a list anywhere and they're not getting government checks. I don't know how they make it. So what they do is they train you like a good little puppet there. They train you in school to be smart enough to get the job done. You know, you're getting hired to do an assembly line. Yep, I can put the round peg in the round hole. I can put the square peg in the square hole. You know, half the people that graduate can't even read and write. I'm meeting them. I'm meeting people that graduated high school and cannot read or write. I know some people like that personally. Okay? And yet they made it year after year after year. Okay, how does that happen? Because they want you smart enough to do a job. They're training you, see, for adulthood. They want you smart enough to do a job, but not too smart that you ask any questions. They don't want you thinking outside the box. They don't want you to have a mind of your own. They want you to be a good little robot throughout your life and not give them any problems. So when they do their dastardly stuff on society, as we're seeing right in front of our faces, okay, nobody will say anything. You know, many years ago, people would have had their torches and pitchforks. They would have stormed that White House for some of the stuff going on today. But today, people, they go to work, they do their job, they drive home, they turn on CNN, Communist News Network, they watch a bunch of lies. That's all lies. That's all propaganda. And you sit there and you feed on this junk food of television. And while you're eating that junk food, processed food that you picked up at the grocery store. And then they go to bed, they do it over again, and they haven't a clue what's going on. I mean, even the Twin Towers coming down. Why do you think they do that? Oh, everybody's fixated on this. That's how they introduced the Patriot Act. That's how they did it. That's how they did it. But see, most people will never question that. And the ones that do question it, you'll never see them on the news. They block that stuff out. Or they make fun of one person, you know, and talk about their tinfoil hat or whatever. But that's the reality of it. The schools are there to dumb your child down. Now they're adding sexuality to it because they now want your child to be all confused about his gender, even in kindergarten now. This is the garbage they teach them. And they're doing this to not only pollute their minds for the future, but to keep them stupid enough so that they're always going to be working at McDonald's or something and never go anywhere in life and have no ambition or nothing. Okay, this is the whole point of it. This is the society you live in if you are in the United States. I don't know what's going on everywhere else in the world. I do know everyone else everywhere else in the world can see it. They're like, come on, you people in the U.S., you don't even know what's going on around you. We see it, but you don't. And then they shove fluoride in your water to dumb you down further, and we will get into that later. Okay, now, it says, Freemasonry, this is a quote, Freemasonry, the oldest and most powerful secret society in the history of the world, had planted firm roots in early day America and even played a significant role in the American Revolution. Yes, it did. It played an even greater role in the subsequent French Revolution. Yes, it did. Which initially was greeted with joy and approval in the United States. Problem, reaction, solution. Okay. The number of Masonic lodges grew and membership increased. By 1826, it was estimated that Masons in the United States numbered nearly 50,000, mostly educated and professional men. This is in 1826. We're in 2017. You know how many there are now? Turn on your television. They're all right there in front of you. I'd get rid of my TV, but I know, I don't understand why it's so hard for people. You know, when I tell people we haven't had a television in years, I mean, I have a TV. I've got a big old flat screen. But I watch my videos, my YouTube and my different things. I watch them on there. But as far as television programming, we cut that cord years ago. And we don't get any reception where I live either. Anyway, unless you have cable or something like that. So, we cut that cord many years ago. And I never missed it since. I wanted to cut it sooner. My husband, we had to wait till basketball season was over in order to cut it when we did. So I was ready 2 years earlier. Anyway, we did cut it and never missed it since. And when we tell, when somebody's talking about TV, they'll say to us like, oh, you know that series on TV, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I haven't a clue what you're talking about. I don't watch TV in years, And they'll look at you with that deer in the headlights look. You don't have TV? Well, I don't have programming. There's a lot of meaning in words, You really got to go back and look at that. What is programming? It's brainwash, okay? And that was the whole purpose of television from the start. People say, well, it's entertainment. Yeah, they entertain you to brainwash you. That's the whole purpose of it all. So anyway, we'll tell people that, my husband or I will say, we haven't had TV in years. I don't know who you're talking about. And they will look at you like, are you kidding? What do you do? I'm thinking to myself, what do I do? I don't have time to sit around and watch TV, that's for sure. So, anyway, it's such a strange concept to people. And I can't relate to it. I mean, even before when I had programming, I was never a big TV person anyway. It was more noise. If nobody was home, I'd click that thing on. But I was never sitting in front of it, Unless I was doing laundry or I was doing something like that. Now, I'd probably sit in front of the TV just for, And that's another thing, but I'll get on that another time. It will hypnotize you, too. That's another story. But yeah, people, they look at you like there's something wrong with you. What do you do? What do you do? I wish there were 48 hours in a day. That's what I do. There isn't enough time to do everything. I got a lot to do. Okay, so now that I've lost my place entirely. Okay, but in that year, the year talking back to 1826, one Mason broke ranks. It became known that Captain William Morgan, another Freemason name here, of Batavia, New York, was planning, they left a word out. It must have been to leave Freemasons, okay? He was planning to leave the Freemasons. Captain Morgan. Yeah. Captain Morgan also has, it has esoteric, I guess you would say, significance to Freemasonry. So if we get to anything more Captain Morgan, this is where it comes from. Okay? It was that he broke ranks with them. Morgan, a 30-year member of the order, wrote, quote, "The bane of our civil institutions is to be found in Masonry. Already powerful and daily becoming more so. I owe my country an exposure of its dangers." Before the book could be printed, Morgan and his publisher were kidnapped in Batavia. Irate friends and neighbors pursued the kidnappers and managed to rescue the publisher. But Morgan was not so fortunate. He was never seen again. Years later, a Mason named Henry L. Valance confided to his doctor as he lay dying that he and 2 other Masons had dropped Morgan into the Niagara River Valance. Into the Niagara River. I wonder if they're talking about Niagara Falls River? I don't know. Valance said, since that night, he had suffered from a guilty conscience. Good. The mark of Cain. That is his quote. The mark of Cain. And sought absolution for his sin. And those quotes were put in by Jim Marrs in his book Rule of Secrecy. Okay? Yeah, Captain Morgan. There is a significance to him in Freemasonry. I knew it wasn't the alcohol. Isn't there I don't know, there's like a whiskey or something called Captain Morgan. You know, if there is, it probably had something to do with him, but I don't know. I think it's Captain Morgan. I don't know. But yeah, Freemasonry does keep some information on him, but basically it killed him. Okay, they took him out. Also, you know, think about this. Remember Kennedy assassination? Remember he gave that big old speech months earlier on, I think it was a year earlier, on secrecy and secret societies. Is that big famous speech that you always hear online. I mean, he was secret society, but I think he was wanting to expose the evils that were within secret society. It's like I said, they don't all agree with each other. You know, they're at odds. Look at Trump and everybody else. You know, they're going at it with him. They don't like him, but he's secret society too. Doesn't mean they don't disagree with each other, okay? If you listen to Hollywood's Masonic adventure movie National Treasure, then 6 of the founding fathers were Freemasons. If you read various Masonic websites, they tend to admit 913 were Masons. But the truth is that the majority of the founding fathers were high-ranking Masons. Of the 56 signatories of the American Declaration of Independence, at least 50 out of the 56, at least 50 were known to be Freemasons, and only 1 known not to be. That's written from David Icke, Tales from the Time Loop. Okay? Now, David Icke is not a Christian, but he's got a lot of good information. He's got a lot of stuff on mind control, a lot of stuff on ritual abuse, and a lot of things on reptilians. Okay? But he's not a Christian, I'll just warn you up front. He does adhere to some New Age ideals. Okay, the Supreme Council of the 33rd degree of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry has told the student that 13 of the 39 original signers of the Constitution were Masons. It is also interesting to note that there were 39 signers, exactly 3 times the Masonic number 13. Now we're going to get into numbers. And that was written by Ralph Epperson, a book titled The New World Order. Okay? Now we're going to get into numbers. Let's find out, what does this number 13 mean? It says 13 is an important number to Masons. There are 13 degrees in the York Rite Freemasonry. And there just happen to be 13 original colonies, including New York. Remember that on the original flag? Okay, and the 13 colonies? These numbers aren't, they didn't just pull them out of a hat. These are very significant numbers to them. And your American flag that you pledge allegiance to is all Freemasonic. Every bit of it. You know, it's really a tough thing, too, because even for me, because, like, no matter where you go to a baseball game, you go somewhere in public where everybody's doing the Pledge of Allegiance, and it's like, do I really want to stand there with my back to it, as Obama did, even during inauguration? That should have told people something right there. And then if you're not standing there with your hand over your heart, lip syncing, people look at you like, oh, you're against the veterans, you're against this, you're against that, and you're not. You just know the truth, you know. I want my allegiance to be to the Lord, not to some flag. My allegiance is not to this flag or this country. You know, I used to like the country I lived in, but now it's really gotten bad. I mean, really gotten bad. I mean, to the point, there's a lot of stuff going on that's hard to be respected. Okay, we're guilty of a lot of crimes against humanity. And but then when you know what the significance of the flag is, which we will get into that, it's really hard to stand there with your hand over your heart and pledge allegiance to that. Okay? I'm not against, I understand we need a military force. I'm not anti-military, although I am anti-wars that we have going on, because really we're protecting drug fields, drug trafficking, and all this sort of thing, and we're the bullies of the world. That really is it. We are the military power. But I'm not, I feel like the veterans are getting really a bad deal. I mean, when they come back all wounded and crippled up, they gotta wait forever to get their benefits. They want them to die before they give them anything medical. That's really, that's the bottom line. They don't give a rip about our veterans at all. They're getting a raw deal. Honestly, they're getting a raw deal. Okay? And so anyway, I'm not going to pledge my allegiance to this flag. I just, my allegiance is to the Lord. That's it. That's who I am allegiance. That's who my allegiance goes to, not to a flag. Okay. New York is known as the Empire State. See, I almost took a side road there somewhere else, but I might not have ever gotten back. Okay, New York is known as the Empire State, with the Empire State Building. But whose empire? Have you ever asked yourself whose empire? Oh, we just assume it's ours. Oh, no. Who's the emperor? Perhaps the York Rite Freemasons could tell us? 13 Masons signed the Constitution along with 26, which is 13 times 2, non-Masons, making 39. 13 times 3 is 39. Just helping you with your math. There also just happens to be 39 members of Rockefeller's Bilderberg Inner Circle and 39 floors in Rockefeller's United Nations building. Let me show you this. Okay, nice building, huh? This will all become more significant in the occult numerology chapter. Okay, I guess he's talking the numerology chapter on this website. I don't know that I did that. I only picked a few numbers that were significant. Okay? Did you know the Statue of Liberty was given to America by French Freemasons? Yes, Jonathan Kleck points all that out. There is another statue just like it in France on an island in the Seine, S-E-I-N-E. The character propagated as Lady Liberty supposedly derived from the Roman goddess Libertas, is simply a patriotic pseudonym for the public. Lady Liberty has been known throughout history as Isis of Egypt, Samarius or Ishtar of Babylon, and Athena of Greece, Astarte of Syria, Cybele of Rome, Ashtaroth of Israel, and Diana of Ephesus. Ephesus, Paul in the Ephesians, Ephesus. It was Diana. Oh, there's a whole other thing. When you get to the death of Princess Diana and her name and the occult significance and how all this plays a role, it's amazing. Okay, maybe that's another video for another time. She is a pagan mother goddess of the Brotherhood. Surprise! Nearly always depicted dressed in a robe, wearing a crown of thorns, and carrying the torch of illumination. She is symbolic of both the moon and dog star Sirius. Sirius, which okay, which is why the English word for God is simply dog backwards. Think about that one. The dog days of summer was coined after Sirius and was believed to be an evil time. Now, you've heard that statement made a lot of times. People would say, man, these are the dog days of summer. Well, that's where that originated from. J. Brady in Clavis Calendarium says the dog days were known as a time, quote, when the seas boiled, wine turned sour, dogs grew mad, as in crazy, and all creatures became languid, causing to man burning fevers, hysterics, and frenzies, unquote. This hot time was associated with hot-headedness. This is why your Sirius, Sirius, when you're serious, Serious. There's probably a lot of kids in today's generation don't even know how to spell that word, but all right. This is also the occult origin of the American hot dog. Didn't they say hot dogs, apple pie, and Chevrolet? Was it baseball, hot dogs, apple pie, and Chevrolet? That was the all-American thing. Remember, Chevrolet, Freemason. Here's the deal on the hot dogs, on the hot days, on the dog days of summer. Okay? That's two of them. 2 for 2. All right, July 4th, Americans' Independence Day. Just happens to be the second of Sirius's, okay, dog days. Okay, happens to be the second of Sirius's dog days, was July 4th. An important date to the pre-Masonic Knights Templar. It's the date of the Templars' massive defeat by Muslim armies in the Holy Land at the Horns of Hattin on 4 July AD 1187. Didn't know there was significance to that date, did ya? Which was followed by the loss of Jerusalem to Christendom. I want to interject here. When they say Christendom, they aren't talking like Christianity as far as relationship with the Lord. They are talking about the Roman Catholic system. I hate it too, because that system is anything but Christian. Okay. There could therefore hardly be a more evocative Templar or Solomonic, like Solomon, date than July 4th, evocative. That is, of the aspiration to build Solomon's temple in Jerusalem. So there is significance to that date, going all the way back to Solomon's temple in Jerusalem. That's what they say. And they probably do know, because they're also the hiders of gnosis, knowledge. Okay? It's hidden. It's hidden in their twistings. The reader will be aware, of course, that July 4th is Independence Day in the U.S., commemorating the signature of the Declaration of Independence and converting the date forever into a powerful talisman. There's a word for you. That spells out independence and freedom for the new world, and now, by and large, for a new world order. From the start, that was the plan. I remember being a kid in school and thinking to myself, I am so lucky to be born here, because um, you would hear about, about all these other countries and things that go on in these other countries. Then in history, well, this is back in the 70s. I don't even think they teach any history and things like that now. Of course, it was his story. It wasn't all true. But I remember thinking to myself, because they would spin the brainwash on you about how, Christopher Columbus, and then you get Napoleon's story, and then you get all these different characters that they glorify, that were all Freemasons, okay? And I remember thinking to myself, because of all the stuff going on back in those times, thinking, wow, I'm lucky to be born in the U.S. We're free here. I remember being a kid and thinking that. And being totally clueless as the world that we really are in. We are anything but free. We are debt slaves. If you look at those pyramid pictures that I posted in the other videos, you'll see that in that tower, we're on the bottom. We're the sheep. We're the dumb sheep on the bottom of that pyramid. We are anything but free. But this is what they have presented in the minds of the people, and then people willingly are ignorant and do as they're told, thinking that they're free. Okay, anyway, that last statement that I made about the New World Order now, by and large, that we were a new world, and really, this country was established long ago in order to create the New World Order. That's the truth of why we're here. They are not going to tell you that in school. And that was by Graham Hancock and Robert Boisville, in a book called The Talisman. Okay? I'm going to go a little bit further here. The symbol of the U.S. dollar is that little dollar sign. It's an S with a line going through it. Sometimes with one or two vertical lines. The S and the I have nothing to do with dollars. Yeah, just in case you haven't figured that out, it doesn't. Okay? And everything to do with ISIS. I-S-I-S. I'll go a step further. That S with the line going through it means under the scourge of Satan. That S is for Satan, and that line through it is the scourge. It means under the scourge of Satan. When you sign a contract, okay, you are signing that contract under the scourge of Satan. That's really what the S stands for. And the pound, LB, over in Britain, it's no different. That L stands for Lucifer. Okay? I just thought I'd tell you. The Egyptian goddess of the moon was Sirius. And Sirius. The Egyptian goddess of the moon and Sirius was Isis. And this is the most common name for her used by the Brotherhood. Who do you think created Isis? Think about that one. They would have you to believe that some group of thugs that wanted to be a terrorist group just created themselves out of nowhere. And now they're so big and can do so much damage. Who do you think did that? That was our shadow government that created ISIS. Think about that one. Okay, the dollar sign is actually an occult talisman to this Illuminati goddess. That is why both the Statue of Liberty, Isis, and her dollars are both the same color, green. The ancient roots of the word moon were mon and min, which is why we have money made at the mint. Wizard of Oz. Wait till I got to get into Wizard of Oz one day here. Okay, the very idea of money and symbolic currency comes from the ancient secret societies. Silver was connected with the moon and therefore with the goddesses of the moon, the most famous of which was and is Isis. So her name became the symbol of money. We find this today in the cleverly camouflaged motif, the dollar sign, which is nothing more than the sigil for the name of Isis, but fused together in an ingenious manner. And that was written by Michael Tessarian. Michael Tessarian gets into a lot of esoteric stuff, but he's got a lot of good information, but you have to be careful with him. He is not a Christian. And he wrote that in Astrotheology and Sidereal Mythology. That was the name of the book he wrote that in. Okay, during the 1790s, French Freemason Pierre Lafont designed the street plan and architectural layout of Washington, D.C. to include many account talismans. If you see D.C. from an aerial view, you may be shocked to find things like an iron cross, this picture, used by Hitler, the Star of David. David didn't have a star, but here's the picture. An upside-down satanic pentagram pointing to the White House. And even a pyramid with a huge owl sitting atop the Capitol building. Okay, I'm going to... The Egyptian hieroglyph for the Illuminati goddess Isis, or Sirius, is a star, an oval, and an obelisk, all drawn together. In Washington, D.C., there just happens to be the Washington Monument obelisk, the Oval Office, and a pentagram encoded in the street's architecture. The Egyptian hierogram for the star Sirius consists of three shapes: a five-pointed star, these are all occult, an oval, and an obelisk. This is a quote. Amazingly, this is just what we find in stone in Washington, D.C. The entire city is dedicated astromantically to the star Sirius and its occult deities. Astrology is good enough for the ruling plutocrats, it seems. Pity that when the ordinary person seeks to use the divination arts for their own personal physical and spiritual empowerment, they are considered freaks and devil worshippers, unquote. This was written by David Oveson. Secret Architecture of Our Nation's Capital was the name of the book. Millionaires do not use astrology, billionaires do. That's a quote by J.P. Morgan. All right. Before I go further here, I need to move on to the next video. I have no idea what part I'm on now. But anyway, I told you this was going to be a long series. I was going to go through a lot of things here. I have a lot more stuff coming up. So anyway, I hope that you learned something. I will meet you on the other side. Be blessed.